Picture yourself in the depths of a Korean winter, 1952. The temperature has plummeted to 20 below zero, and you're lying in a shallow fighting position carved into a frozen mountainside. Above you, the stars are impossibly bright in the clear night air. Below you, the earth itself becomes your enemy, a relentless thief of body heat that can kill you just as surely as enemy fire. This is where the Cold War sleeping mat earned its place in military history, not with fanfare or ceremony, but through countless nights of silent service on the world's harshest battlefields. What seems like a simple piece of foam represents one of the most critical innovations in field survival, a lesson learned through the frozen suffering of soldiers who discovered that sometimes the ground you're defending can be more deadly than the enemy you're facing. The mat beneath a soldier's sleeping bag became the thin barrier between restful sleep and hypothermic death, between combat readiness and medical evacuation. The story of military sleeping mats begins in the bitter cold of the Korean Peninsula, where United Nations forces faced an enemy as old as warfare itself, hypothermia. Soldiers wrapped in wool blankets and down sleeping bags still woke to frostbitten extremities because they hadn't understood a fundamental principle of thermal dynamics, conductive heat loss. The human body radiates warmth in all directions, but when you're lying directly on frozen ground, that surface becomes a superhighway for heat transfer, draining your core temperature with mechanical efficiency. Medical officers documented cases where soldiers with adequate clothing and sleeping bags still suffered cold weather injuries simply because they slept directly on the ground. Early attempts at insulation involved whatever materials soldiers could scavenge: pine boughs, dried grass, even cardboard from ration boxes. These improvised solutions absorbed moisture, compressed under body weight, and ultimately failed when soldiers needed them most. The breakthrough came with closed-cell polyethylene foam, a material that fundamentally changed the equation of survival in cold weather operations and would influence outdoor equipment design for generations to come. When military researchers began developing what would become the standard-issue sleeping mat, they were solving a problem that had plagued armies since antiquity. The cross-linked polyethylene foam they engineered created millions of tiny sealed air pockets, each one a miniature fortress against heat transfer. Unlike open-cell foams that act like sponges, these closed cells refused to absorb water, maintained their insulating properties even when punctured, and could withstand the compression of a soldier's body weight night after night without losing effectiveness. The density was carefully calculated through extensive field testing. Too soft and the mat would bottom out, allowing cold to seep through. Too firm and it would be unbearably uncomfortable, preventing the restorative sleep that soldiers desperately needed. The result was a pad typically 3/4 of an inch thick that could, transform a frozen trench floor into survivable sleeping quarters, providing an R-value sufficient to prevent the catastrophic heat loss that had sent so many soldiers to field hospitals with hypothermia and frostbite in previous conflicts. The cross-linking process created chemical bonds between polymer chains that gave the foam remarkable durability and resistance to the compression damage that plagued earlier designs. Experienced soldiers developed an entire doctrine around their sleeping mats that went far beyond simply unrolling them at night. They learned to clear their sleeping area of rocks and debris, creating a level surface that maximized the mat's coverage and prevented pressure points that could compress the foam and create cold spots. In extreme conditions, they would layer materials, placing a poncho beneath the mat to shield it from direct contact with snow or ice, then positioning the mat inside their sleeping bag to create an envelope of warmth that trapped heat with maximum efficiency. The mat became multi-purpose equipment that proved its value around the clock. During the day, it served as a seat during long periods of observation, a cushion for prone shooting positions that reduced fatigue during extended surveillance, and even emergency medical equipment for transporting wounded soldiers across rough terrain when proper stretchers weren't available. Veterans understood that this simple piece of gear represented the difference between waking alert and ready for patrol, or starting the day already depleted, fighting through exhaustion and the early stages of cold weather injury that could escalate into life-threatening conditions. They learned to inspect their mats regularly for damage, to dry them thoroughly when conditions permitted, and to never abandon them even when reducing pack weight became necessary for rapid movement. The principles embedded in that Cold War sleeping mat resonate powerfully with modern survivalists and outdoor enthusiasts who understand that the wilderness doesn't care about your ideology. It only responds to your preparation. Today's backpackers carry descendants of that military innovation, often without realizing they're employing technology forged in the crucible of actual survival necessity. The lesson really goes beyond just one piece of equipment. It's about understanding thermal management, recognizing that the ground beneath you is just as much a part of your environment as the air around you, and, well, investing in those unglamorous but absolutely essential bits of gear that protect you from threats you can't even see. These soldiers, lying on frozen mountainsides and wind-scoured plains, developed a relationship with their equipment that was truly born of absolute dependence. It's a connection that, honestly, modern practitioners of bushcraft and preparedness would do well to emulate in their own outdoor pursuits. The Cold War sleeping mat reminds us that survival often hinges not on dramatic action, but on understanding fundamental principles and having the discipline to apply them. Those soldiers who trusted their lives to a simple piece of foam understood something essential, that preparation is personal, that comfort isn't weakness but a component of operational effectiveness, and that the most valuable gear is often the least celebrated. As you build your own preparedness systems, remember the frozen ground and the simple solution that saved countless lives. If this journey through military fieldcraft history has sparked your curiosity about the practical wisdom forged in survival necessity, subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles and share this video with others who value the intersection of history, self-reliance, and the timeless art of staying alive when conditions turn against you.